journey that has brought them to where they're here today. My name is Jonathan Manwaring. My wife Rachel's actually on the panel, and we work with the cooks and the Curtises. The three of us alternated hosting monthly get-togethers through the olive group. And so this is a very important part of our life, and we're thankful to be here tonight. So as you can see, we have 6 different people on our panel today. Each one of them has obviously a different story that they'll share. And at the conclusion of hearing each of their stories, we'll have a question and answer section, and then we'll conclude at 12:30. You'll notice here I put a cell phone number. If you have a question you would like to ask, we would ask you to text that question. And then if there's time during the Q&A portion, we'll ask the group that question. I have some questions already that have been selected. When many of you registered, you put some questions in your registration form, so some of those we'll use together as we get started today. So without further ado, each person will take about 2 to 3 minutes to introduce themselves and tell their story, and then we'll open it for questions afterwards. So we'll start with Teresa.
Hi, I'm Teresa Bartholomew, and I had the privilege of being on the panel at the very first All Conference 4 years ago. That was a long time ago. So if you were here then, you've heard part of our story. Then 2 years ago, my wife Rachel was also on the panel, so some of this might sound familiar. But I was raised in Southern California, strong LDS family. Rachel and I met in what we like to call the classic BYU love story. I was home from my mission about 3 weeks. There's a knock on my door, I open it, and there she was. And our lives just kind of never separated from that moment on. We were fast friends. It took a while to realize that it was more than that. But that realization was always a bittersweet one. So we just kind of pushed it off and said, you know, we're going to get married one day because, you know, good RN guys that we're supposed to marry. And meanwhile, our lives got more and more intertwined. And we bought a condo together because that's what best friends do. And we lived together because that's what best friends do. And with each passing year, things just got more and more difficult. It was an ongoing kind of uneasiness that would come out in a lot of different weird ways. And after about 10 years of living in this limbo state, holding on so tightly to the church that I loved and grown up in, and also knowing that I was in love with Rachel, and just trying to hold on to both those things, it kind of all came to a head one day when we were in the middle of a huge fight over nothing. And I looked at her and I said, you know, I'm done. I can't. We've tried this one way for so long. Can we just try something different? And she kind of looked at me and said, okay. And we just started to be together and be okay with that. And slowly over the next few years, we came out first to ourselves and then to our families. And then the 3 weeks before that All Conference, we came out publicly announcing that we were engaged. We also found out the week of that All Conference that we were expecting our first little boy, who's now this 3.5-year-old precocious guy running around. So since that All Conference, we got married, we've had 2 sons, and life is pretty good. That's who I am today. Yeah.
My name is Jim White. If you heard Renee's story, just make that for me. I am the oldest of 6 children as well, raised in southern Indiana, very strong LDS family. If you would have known, and I was the classic perfect Mormon boy. And had you known me 5 years ago, you would have seen somebody who on the face was just happy. Perfect, had a perfect family, was married, had 3 beautiful children. I had 3 beautiful children. And I was on the inside, I was dead. I was depressed, angry, suicidal, and instead of killing myself or running away to Argentina. Go figure. I decided to come out and be who I am. So 5 years later, I am happier than I've ever been in my life. I have an amazing group of friends, and dating and enjoying being who I am, taking care of my children, and meeting the obligations I need to make to make sure that they have the best life possible. So I'll just go ahead and pass this down to our next panelist.
Okay. I'm Sam Turner. I live in Tucson currently, but I grew up in Washington State. The east side of Washington State, not the west side, still the dry side, the desert side, the dead side. Okay? Just gotta be clear. But anyway, I've been here, I've been living in Tucson now for a little over a year, since last January, and a month after I moved to Tucson, things kind of went upside down. So my little story is that, for me at least, I'm gay, and for me it was just, I didn't pay attention to it for like ever. I just like kept my nose to the grindstone and didn't ever pay attention to any of this stuff happening. I didn't go out with anyone. Went on a couple dates, went to prom. That's fine. She was cool. But anyway, yeah, I went on a mission to Chile, came back, studied electrical engineering. It was tough. Didn't date then either. And then I came to Tucson, and then I had time and money, and I was like, time to date. And then I realized I was attracted to somebody that I talked to a lot. So anyway, it was a guy. Yeah, it was cool. So I finally decided to hit this head on. And that was a really intense month. That was February of last year. Because, I had been kind of in a period of self-denial. So that month was kind of crazy. A lot of stress at work. I would like stare at my screen for like 3 hours. I would like go on walks, it was a stress, even my coworkers noticed. So, but after the first 4 weeks, I went ahead and told anyone. Within 2 weeks after that, I went from not telling anyone to blasting into Facebook. The way that Shalani puts it, I was like a match on a gasoline tank. I was like, everybody just gets to know this. And I just blasted it everywhere. Since that time, it's been really interesting. It's been very confusing, but it's also been a period of much growth. And I've really appreciated this past year, even all the ups and downs. It's been emotional, it's been crazy, but it's also been personally rewarding because I feel much more like I'm not required to live a certain way. Because I think that was the biggest thing, was that I felt like I was living under the expectation of this. So that's where I am now, and I'm just kind of living life. It's not working. There's a little bit, so we'll see what happens. But it's been a pretty intense ride for now.
Hi, I'm Rachel Moulton. I'm a returned missionary. I got home 10 months ago. I am very active in the church. I love the gospel very much. I obviously have a hard time with my mission being Canadians that are women. So chances are you're going to be attracted to a few of them. I was able to deal with that pretty well actually, because it wasn't until on my mission that I finally admitted to myself that I struggle with same-sex attraction. And then after I got home, I realized it wasn't just same-sex attraction, I was gay. And that was probably the most depressing and most anxious time I've ever had in my life. And on top of that, I had fallen in love with my last companion, and that's the time I really realized that. I hadn't really told anyone, except for 2 of my companions at my mission visit. And then a few months after I got home, I was going to BYU, Idaho, I was to do everything I could to make myself straight, right? And I just kept getting more and more depressed. I ended up in the hospital because I tried to commit suicide. And that was when I told my parents over the phone. And then like 2 weeks after that, it's on Facebook. And I'm really happy that everybody knows now because I don't have to hide anything. And kind of like Renee said, like for the longest time I thought, you know, if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me, you would be friends with me. But after coming up and having such a positive response, I've really been able to love myself more and really be happy with who I am. And I can still be completely true to who I am and be completely true to the gospel. That's it.
I'm Nick Pratt. Wow, I can't say anything in 3 minutes. I learned how to, my wife told me, you're an external processor. What's that? I'm not very educated. She says, well, that means that you start talking and your brain kicks in gear, and then I get lost. And so, wow, okay. Second child of 9, Mormon family, last name Pratt. Great-grandfather, Ronnie Pratt. 12 wives. Great-grandfather had 3 wives. All of that stuff. All of the Mormon heritage that he's talked about years. And so, did the normal things growing up. Oh, I've got to get this. Okay, grew up, graduated from Sydney Valley High. Wendy and I are same high school. She later on then. Was getting drafted by joining, served a year in Vietnam, came home from that, went on a mission, got married, had 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, 2 grandchildren, served in all of the callings in church. Bishop, stake presidency, all the various callings and so on and so forth. And extremely active. When Renee was talking, I go, oh my gosh, the activity, business, work, up at 4 in the morning, come home, was in construction, quick change up to church for hours, and just busy. So I'm transgender. So I know I don't look my earliest recollection. That's as it's been. What I learned from group therapy for the trauma that I came away from in Vietnam. All of us in the group went to old Vietnam veterans, telling war stories. But what we all have in common was trauma. And in our group was Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, and everyone had different things that happened. We had ones that killed numerous people. Those that were on large bases, those of us who were on small bases. We just saw rockets come in, and others, and so on and so forth. But through all of it was a common thread. Trauma and what war does to young people. So, me being smart, after I did group therapy for 4 years, wow, that worked pretty good. I relented and started taking, my wife likes me to say medication is a drug, but started taking medication. I became a much happier person, even though as angry as I've been for 40 years. And so I thought, well, I need to deal with this transgender issue, the hiding, keeping it under wraps, knowing how to lie, and so on and so forth. And so I thought, wow, that worked pretty good. I need to start seeing a psychiatrist with a VA and so on and so forth. Well, I came out to my wife 2 years ago, and it's been interesting 2 years. That's the story. I can go on about. But, so I've been out about 2 years with my wife, 4 children, their spouses, in preschool. I currently don't have a calling because I don't want one. But I do have a temple with them. And it's been an interesting life. I'll be 70 next month. So consistent with what I've heard already and what I've had others express to me. We go through life suppressing and putting down this very thing that we truly are, whatever the LGBT community we are, and it doesn't work. Some of us can hold on longer than others, but it just doesn't. It has to be dealt with sometime, and I help to do it. Anyway, there's much more to me than rather complex, but I'll turn it over to Rachel.
My name is Rachel Manwaring, and I'm pretty honored to be up here with my friends who I love and respect and am grateful for. So, I'm the boring straight person on the panel. And how I got involved in this is about 11 years ago, my brother-in-law came out to my husband and I as, at that time, same-sex attracted. And we've been on this journey with him ever since. It's taken many different turns. The last turn, I think, happened when he told us that he was going to start dating men. And I remember my words to him were, I feel like you're just giving up. And he looked at me and he said, your idea of giving up and my idea of giving up are very different. And my heart broke. And I knew that I needed to repent, and I knew I needed to come to more understanding. And as I prayed and thought and prayed, the same spirit that had told me many things in my life told me that my job was just to love him and to support him and to accept him and to be there for him. And as I realized that, a huge burden was lifted. We became involved in this group in Arizona. And since that time, and I've had lots of LGBT friends who are amazing. And I came into it feeling like I'm going to come and I'm going to help people feel love and acceptance and in whatever way I can. But it's really me who's been served and who has learned as I've tried to follow their example of loving and accepting unconditionally, as I watch them be patient and forgiving. My heart has been touched, and I always say, because of this, I feel like I'm a better wife, a better mother, a better friend, a better member of the church, and a better follower of Christ. And I'm really grateful for their example in my life, and I'm grateful to be here.
Okay, first question. If you could give advice to your 16-year-old self today, what would you tell him or her? That's anyone who would like this. If you could give advice to your 16-year-old self, what would you tell him or her?
I'll go ahead and jump in because I thought about that a lot. I actually wrote a story years ago before I came out about what it would be like to live my life authentically. Had I been true to myself in college. And at 16, we've only been a couple years before that, so I would say, don't be afraid. I was afraid. And I didn't know where to go, but I think don't be afraid would be what I would say to be who you are.
And I would add to that, don't take ownership of other people's feelings. That was a hard lesson that I had to learn that kept me from really dealing with what was actually going on in my life. I was so afraid of how my mom would feel, my dad would feel, my friends would feel, that I I took on all these fears of how they were going to respond, and I took ownership of all those possible outcomes. And what I ended up having to do, and what I would tell my 16-year-old self to do, is be kind to yourself, be honest with yourself, and let other people have their reactions, and understand those are their reactions. You don't have to own that, if that makes sense.
I would say that don't make any like massive decisions right now in your life. Like you can just, because you're still figuring things out. You're only 16. Like you're still trying to figure out what path you want to choose in life. And I would also say, don't put so much pressure on yourself. Don't try to stifle who you are. Like you know, if you're trying to deal with what you're going through, trying to keep it secret or keep it hidden or suppressing that will only make you feel worse.
It's kind of hard for me to answer this question just because I kind of feel like for me, growing up as I did, had I admitted to myself, had I admitted to myself that I was gay back when I was 16, it's hard for me to speculate about where I am now, but I didn't have the testimony of the church at all back when I was 16, and so had I been open and honest with myself, and I'm I'm gay, then I probably just ditched everything, totally gone with it 100%, and not even tried to develop a testimony. So I guess for me, I don't know if I'd be able to give myself any advice, just because I think for me personally, my own personal coping mechanism, what allowed me to develop a very foundational testimony for myself was actually staying in the closet and being all self-denying. I mean, it's kind of weird, but I was so in personal denial that I completely ignored it and allowed myself to focus on other things, which included, working on my school and going on my mission and developing a testimony there before and after, and getting a foundation from which I could draw upon when I finally came out of both.
16 so long ago, I don't know what you remember. But I do remember this, and I was thinking on this the other day, and I touched on anger. Anger has been a big part of my life since I came home from Vietnam. And before, actually. Vietnam War just exacerbated it. But I remember at about 15, 16 was when I started putting anger on, really suppressing the side of me that I know exists. And so it was getting, I remember, I can distinctly remember the day, this is it, no more emotion. Because I had an older brother that was pretty abusive. And so what you see, this persona you see that I've developed over my time, is what people want to see. It's not who I am. And so I would say to a 16-year-old, I would say to myself, don't go there. Don't go to me. Don't go to suppressing who you are. Just to please people, to be what somebody else wants to see. Because it just doesn't work. And you need to find the freedom, which I have. It's taken me all these years. It's a long story. Have the wherewithal to stand up to it and just be who I was. And who I was taking the abuse. So I buried it.
What lessons did you learn growing up in the LDS church and through the gospel that still affect you today and the decisions you make on a daily basis?
What lessons did you learn in the church growing up that still affect the decisions you make today?
I've got the microphone so I can talk. I really wonder, like I said, second child of 9. my 6 brothers, my 2 sisters, as far as activity in church and so on. Why I have always had a desire to draw close to the church, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, the Spirit, and I felt very strong about that you need to help other people recognize the Spirit. Because we growing up in the LDS church, you know, I call it the mark of the forehead, you know, in the Book of Mormon. The mark of the forehead is when that young man is leaning on the pew in front of him, sleeping because he's bored. Well, they have felt the Spirit from the time they were in primary. And sometimes we have to smack them around a little bit to help them understand you're feeling the Spirit. So we all have, as we've attended our meetings. And just knowing that the Lord is there and the gospel is true is the way. Still resonates and helps hold me true to the doctrines and commandments.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, so the gospel makes me pretty happy, guys. I think one of the biggest things is knowing that God loves us no matter what. That took away so much pressure. You know, thinking that, feeling like I wasn't worthy just because of who I was, and realizing that He made me this way on purpose. There were things I needed to learn, there were things I needed to go through, and there have been so many blessings because of this. But also realizing that even if I did choose to not love the gospel, His love for me would not change. And that took away a lot of pressure. And I'd say the temple is a huge part of my life. It's very important to me. And that has been such a great focus in my life that has helped me through this.
I would say the most important thing that I have received from the church is my own personal testimony, which in the past year I realized is actually smaller than I thought it was. Because, you know, I thought that by strict obedience to all the everythings, that was my testimony, but my testimony is actually much simpler. But, you know, my testimony is God lives, rises, the Savior, and honestly, like did something. Like that's almost the extent of my testimony. Other than maybe like, yeah, I think Joseph Smith was pretty much a prophet. The Book of Mormon, I do have a testimony of that too. So that's literally probably the extent of my testimony. But recognizing and understanding and appreciating the things that I actually do believe gives me a very important base to start from. Because I thought I knew all these other things, but I realized that the simple things for me were the most integral. And so now I have an even deeper testimony of those things while sacrificing sort of a facade of a testimony and a bunch of other smaller things.
Well, I come from a kind of different perspective from everybody else. I'm not a member. I actually resigned back in November, or well, in October. Got the letter in November for the year policy mark. I'm very traditionally Mormon. I'm eighth generation on one side. And so it's very much a part of my heritage and tradition. However, my world was masked and trying to hide and cover up for so long. I never focused on the testimony per se. So really a testimony for me wasn't the same. I'm a cultural Mormon. I'm not necessarily a believing member of the church. Hard to believe that somebody who's been on a high council and bishoprics and branch presidents, or branch president, would never have had a testimony like that. For me, it's really love of family. I have an amazing family. And it really is a love of family that I have taken away, and a love of being a good citizen and just a good person. And I think those are my guiding principles through my life. And so I honor anybody who has that faith, I think that's wonderful. That's not me, but I do take away a lot from the church that I try to incorporate in my life. And those are
And the one lesson I would add when you asked the question that came to mind is that idea of evaluating the fruits of something. Are the fruits good? Are the fruits healthy? Are the fruits those positive things we aspire to? And when Rachel and I made that decision to just try to go a different path, it almost felt like a science experiment a little bit. Like, let's just try, that was our control group, this is our experimental group, and let's just evaluate what happens. But I felt like that fit in the Mormon framework that I grew up in of trying something and evaluating the fruits. And so I always go back to, what are the fruits of my life? What are the fruits that I see? Are they good? Are they full of love? Are they full of charity? And if they are, then I find that to be another validation of my choices, and that's something that comes directly from my Mormon heritage.
Say one more thing. I really wanted to just talk about the Savior. Like, that is the greatest thing that has helped me through anything I've ever gone through in my life. Just thinking about how much He loves me and how much He went through for me, and for all of us. That is where my testimony comes from. Thinking about how dedicated I am to the Savior, and that He suffered all things so that I can get through all things. And that is the greatest thing that's ever helped me.
This on? Yeah, there you go. A bunch of questions coming in from the audience. Thank you guys. And so I'm trying to combine a few of them, but multiple people asked, since a lot of you mentioned that you were returned missionaries, what that mission experience was like, and whether you would recommend someone who identifies LGBT and still believes in the church, whether you would recommend they still go on a mission.
I can answer that one. Go on a mission, okay. I mean, obviously pray about it first, but I wouldn't change a thing. It was the hardest thing I've ever done until I came home. After getting home, thinking about my mission was really hard. Thinking about my last companion was torture. But I wouldn't change a thing. I learned more from that experience and was more dedicated to the Savior because of that than anything in my life. And I still love thinking about my mission. I love thinking about the people that I got to help, the people that I met, people that helped me. And I just think that it's such an amazing experience that I wish everybody could experience, honestly. And struggling with the attractions to my companion, the Savior and Heavenly Father really helped me with that. Like, I was able to receive guidance, I got some blessings, I was able to pray about it. And honestly, you can talk to your mission president if it's really a struggle. You really can. I talked to my mission president a lot. I told him about my last companion, and Heavenly Father didn't want me to get transferred, even though the mission president really wanted me to. He prayed about it a lot, and the answer was I needed to stay with her, and I really think there was a reason to that, and I grew from it. So I would say pray about it and go.
I think the theme of what I'm going to be talking about today is my testimony. So the most important thing for me on the mission was nurturing my testimony. And again, as I said before, without that, like at this point I might be like off in the weeds somewhere, like I don't know where my life would be. So I think it would be good to be completely honest with oneself, going on that mission. Although kept to myself, I was so in the closet, I wasn't even going to like deal with it. It was a relief to go on the mission because I didn't have to think about anything, sexual for 2 years. Anyway, I had a good excuse for 2 years. Anyway, so I think honestly, it was great because I grew such a testimony of certain principles of the Spirit, how it testifies to people. I can think of like 3 or 4 experiences that I had still that I remember. But when I experienced it, when other people experienced it, and
explain it to me in their own words. I have other testimony building experiences with the mission, and I made a foundation that I could pull from when I said, well, if I disagree with this aspect of myself and how the church handles it, I do know these things. I know that this happened, that this happened, that this happened, and this happened. Therefore, the simple answer is not the easiest one. You know, it's not just, oh, the church is false. That is not the easiest answer. Or that is possibly the easiest answer to think of, but actually for me it was no longer the easiest answer because I could not convince myself that I didn't have a testimony. So it's just so integral for me to have a testimony that that's why I would recommend the mission.
So I loved my mission. I learned so much on my mission. I walked away with skills that continue to serve me now many years later. But I was blissfully unaware when I went on a mission. So I didn't have to make that decision. I think about my wife's experience, though. She was aware that she was attracted to women when she went on her mission, and she left kind of with the understanding that she had a deal going with God, that if she was a good missionary, that this whole thing would be in her rearview mirror, and she'd be fixed. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. And usually it doesn't work out that way. So to go on a mission, to not go on a mission, it's a really intensely personal decision. A mission is an intensely difficult situation in ways that you don't comprehend until you're out there. It's truly a unique experience. So it's hard for me to make a recommendation. I would just recommend, like we said previously, to be brutally honest with yourself, what your motivations are. Are you running away from something, or are you running towards something? And if you're running away from something, maybe hit the brakes a little bit and think about it.
Can I have one more thing? I would say that I do feel that there is, I felt pressure or expectation to go, and I think it's very important. And honestly, I don't know how to convince the youth that they need to not be pressured into going. I don't know how to change the culture such that they are convinced that they're not pressured to go. It's hard because I appreciate what I learned on the testimony, but the pressure leading up to it was very frustrating. And I probably came from a lot of different sources. So it's hard to convince everyone of that, but don't feel pressured to go. But it's really great.
There was no pressure because I had made a deal with the Lord. If I came back alive in Vietnam, I'd go. So I got back, and the bishop asked me a few weeks after I got home, and he says, "Have you thought about a mission?" Now, nobody would have given, it wouldn't have been a big deal. I've been gone for 3 years already, so if I hadn't gone, but I told him the story and got this deal with the Lord. And getting my testimony, reading the Book of Mormon, so on and so forth. And when he looks at me and he says, well, okay. So I was out of the Army in April and was gone in August to England for 2 years. Absolutely. Go on a mission. It was a great stabilizer for me as far as what I came away from the military with. It was like a vacation. Hey, what are you stressing about? Party on, because you get to talk to people, you get to eat good food, and you get to preach the gospel, you get to feel the Spirit, you get to really embed that testimony in your heart and your mind, and you learn so many things. And a good friend of mine, in fact, when he came to California, he's on his mission right now in Spain. It was a little dicey him going. The stake president didn't think he should go, he would be a distraction, but here's some help. He got out, he's been in Spain, I think he comes home in about 4 months, and every time I see pictures about him, he just is happy as can be. He's doing the Lord's work, and he's gay, and that's okay. So, absolutely, but go for the right reason.
Thank you. Thank you. So I've got 3 different questions, and they're all for Rachel. And they're the same thing. How do you discuss LGBT issues with your young children while also raising them in the church?
We have 5 children, And I can't remember how long ago we started talking about it, but they were young. And we knew that there was a possibility that our brother-in-law would one day bring home, or my brother-in-law, his brother, would one day bring home someone that he was dating. I knew that not having him in our home would never be an option. So I knew how we needed to handle it, or I thought we needed to handle it. And it started with praying, and we felt that in our family home evening lessons, the most important thing that we could talk about and learn about was the Savior. How the Savior ministered, how the Savior loved, how the Savior was an advocate for people. And so we did that for a long time. And then at the dinner table, I remember we had a conversation and we said, do you know, have you ever heard of gay? And they knew, and I said, well, what do you think about it? And they didn't have much to say, and I said, well, what do you think Heavenly Father and Jesus think about somebody who's gay? And those sweet little kids knew all the right answers. They knew that Heavenly Father and Jesus felt the same way about someone who's gay than what they did about them. And so then our conversation said, well, how do you think we should treat people who are gay? Because at the time they didn't know all the other letters. And they knew. There was no question ever. And then a year or so went by and we got to tell them that their uncle, their favorite uncle, who they loved, who was with them their whole life, was gay. And they didn't worry about it in any way. And since that time, my husband said that we get to have people in our home every third month. A big group of LGBT people come to our home, and our kids are there, and our kids love them, and our kids don't see people as gay or straight or anything else. They see people for people, and they love our friends. And they're people who bring such goodness into our life, into our home, in so many ways. And I am so grateful for that lesson that we've been able to teach our kids. The labels don't matter. It doesn't matter. And I wouldn't change it, and I can say it has been nothing but a blessing in our home.
Thank you. Nick. So multiple questions for you, Nick, and they all kind of surround this idea of what does it mean to be transgender. A few people have always thought it meant that one changes their gender externally in how they dress and present themselves. And what does that mean to you to be transgender and how you choose to present yourself?
Okay. Wow. Okay, well, so people believe I'm confused. Rightfully so. I was told early on I was crazy by the family. And I'm referred to as crazy Uncle David. But I'm really Nicole. At the very heart, soul of my being, that's who I am. I don't look that way, I don't present that way. We all went to the bathroom a little while ago, and nobody got hurt. Somebody was standing next to me in there, and we're all okay, you know? Oh my gosh, the whole bathroom thing over the last year or so, what a joke. Sorry. Did Tom send that question up because I told him, look out, I'll be a loose cannon if you Anyway, I'm sorry. I'll try to get back together here. Okay, so you need to know the story a little bit. For years, a lot of you probably know Ann, Pack up in Utah. Ann and I were talking about affirmation last year, and we were joking and laughing about it. At that time, last year, I was on hormones, testosterone blockers, estrogen, and another big shot that I get. And I was transitioning. And of course, what I would lose is very clear if I've been told what I would lose. As far as family, associations, home, that's move out, so on and so forth. But I was transitioning anyway. Well, it all came to a head just before Thanksgiving last year, and I threw a fit, and I flushed all my medications, all of them, everything. Not smart, don't do it. I thought I was going to die, literally, physically, emotionally, mentally, suicidal, the whole thing. That really wreaked havoc on my body, dumping everything. Because it was that bad. But why I threw the fit and why I committed to my wife, I won't transition. That's it. Anne refers to it as white knuckling. In other words, holding on every day as best you can to deal with it. There's not a day goes by that I don't struggle with gender dysphoria. And we'll just leave it at that. So years went on as buying clothes and such. And no, I'm not going to do this ever again, and throw it away. In the trash can, out to the side of the curb and gone. A couple weeks later, again. It's called binging and purging in the need to dress and clothing. So you can present yourself in a manner that is pleasing to you and pleasing to society, so that you don't get called names or whatever, or abused or killed. So I've made that commitment that I won't transition medically or present that way. I have clothes at home in the garage. I haven't worn them in months. I could come full on today also, make up on the whole thing. My wife and I are kind of laughing about that now. I got a support email the other day yesterday. And she says, "You did?" And I says, "Yeah, I used to be a VIP member." Anyway, I had some settings, right? And I gave it to my wife, and she got offended. I said, "Well, this is real good stuff. Try it." So she had to get some more because she ran out. I am comfortable with who I am. That doesn't bode well, though, with people. It took, I am comfortable with Nicole. My wife hates the name. That's okay. And I am comfortable at this point. No, I'm not. Not transitioning. I would if I could. But we moved here to Arizona, and I've never been a big fan of the Lord wants you here. People say, well, where does the Lord want me? I don't know. Make a decision, move, and you'll find out if it's right or not. And then make another decision. But never in my life have I seen things work so flawlessly. Get moved over here to Arizona from California. I mean, how many house deals? We sold our house we were in. I can't go on this story too long. But every escrow we've been involved with in the last 2 years or something, 30-day escrows flawlessly, not a hitch. How many times has that happened? And now we live right next door to my daughter, my youngest daughter, and those 2 grandchildren. hole in the wall so we get through. And, I mean, I can't give up that relationship. And so I guess what you see is what you get. It's not what I would prefer, but I don't, and maybe I wouldn't have to give up everything totally, but it's more, I guess, than I want to risk. And so I will, as my state president, you all will appreciate this. My state president over in California before we moved here, he says, well, Brother Pratt, you're almost 70. You've been doing this for a long time. You don't have that much longer to live. Just keep doing what you've been doing. I go, wow, thanks, President. You know, so anyway, was there any more to that question?
I think you got it. Yeah. But thank you for teaching, and I think for me especially, even if I'm a doctor and take care of transgender patients, but there's a lot more to that. But hearing it out of the mouth of someone who feels transgender, you can't read that from a book. Only sharing your story is how we learn. So.
Twist to this.
Oh, okay.
Because the state president over there asked me, so like men? I go, oh no, not interested. And he looks at me and I says, that'd make me a lesbian. And I thought I was going to follow him.
Yeah. Okay, there's a number of questions about the atmosphere in church, how wards, church leaders, youth leaders can make our wards and stakes more welcoming and create an environment where LGBT people and youth can still feel accepted, loved, and gain testimony in that environment. What can be done in a ward and stake setting?
I'm sorry. We need to be visible. We need to let them know we exist. Therein, I think, is the biggest problem. Having been in leadership, a bishop for 6.5 years, 4 years in the stake presidency, why do we have so many less active members in our church? Why are they less active? Oh, they got insulted. Oh, the beans weren't hot at the social. Or, some foolish thing. Why are they not there? Because they can't measure up to the persona of the LDS person. The tie, everybody dresses the same, and they talk the same, and so on and so forth. And I'm taking this more from my leadership callings but likewise, it's the same. How many gay people, gay, lesbian, trans, are sitting in our congregations, and I've told every priest leader since I've come out the same thing. You don't know how many are out there because they're not speaking up because they don't. What's going to happen if they do? What do they perceive will happen to them if they speak up? And so, yeah, it's not a welcoming environment because you do get slights, you do get comments, and from ignorance. It's just not in a negative way, but just ignorance on people's part. My poor bishop right now, he's new, only in a couple months, and when I told him, he didn't know why the previous bishop was meeting with me. But this just kind of shows it, and he didn't want to know. So when I went in and saw him, and I got to the part, I'm transgender, he did. He goes like, oh my gosh, I would have never known. You sit with your wife in church, and you have your arm around her. Oh, well, what does that mean? Of course I would. But they have a perception, they have an idea, and that needs to change. And I personally have a strong belief that change is coming in the future. It may take a while, but it is coming.
So I've related a lot of my experiences coming out to being a missionary, actually. Because you talk to a lot of people, and some people are like, oh, that's super nice, but I've got like stuff to do. You know, people kind of like want to draw their curtains in front of their house whenever you show up, and you're like, hey, I'm gay. Like, oh, that's great.
Occasionally you have a golden investigator, they're usually gay. So, another aspect in which I feel that is like a mission is in, like how we interact with people at church. You know, I have a little rainbow bracelet with a unicorn on it that I got from the Tucson Street Fair. And I wear it to church every week now. And in missionary terms, I think that is kind of like, maybe it's like tracting, like just going door to door with people, or maybe it's just like carrying the Book of Mormon around with you, like trying to hope that your passive aggressiveness helps you be interested in the church. So I try to be fairly open though when people ask questions, but tracting is very ineffective. You know, you get very few investigators. They always talk about it in terms of, you know, being a missionary. It's most effective when members are, you know, helping in the effort. So, for example, to carry the analogy, we had a lesson at a ward that was there that Ben Schley was invited to teach at, in which the ward invited him to come talk about the experience. And it was like during church. So there were like 30, 40 people in attendance. We've invited people to our group to have little ally nights, and we usually get like 5 or 6 people that are like interested to come, apart from like our group. But when priesthood leaders, when members who are towing the line according to church standards, who can be trusted within, like, you know, the church realm, when they're the ones setting these things up and inviting and creating lessons and trying to bring it out, you know, it's so much more effective, and there's so much more people that you can reach. And I think that would be very integral in helping people on a ward level, and even on a stake level, to be aware of this, is allowing the stake presidents and the bishoprics and everyone else to invite, rather than always relying on basically my little rainbow bracelet.
First of all, I just really appreciate this question. I think it's a great question to be kind of grappling with. I think one of the most powerful things, and it might also be one of the most challenging things, is to help you see a pathway forward, to see a future. I think about when my Rachel, there's a lot of Rachels, you have to be careful. So my Rachel and I, when we came out, we didn't know any gay people. We had really convoluted ideas maybe of what the gay experience was for other people. And so we jumped into becoming educated and understanding the community that we were always kind of a part of, just didn't know it. And we were shocked. And it's terrible to be shocked by this, but we were shocked at our first experience at a conference similar to this one, where we met other gay Mormons. And they were so normal, and they had great lives, and they had great relationships, and they were such examples of life going awesome, like I said earlier. And I think that was such an important thing for us, and we weren't used at the time. We were in our mid-30s, but I think it's the same for our youth. I think it's the same wherever you are in your journey. If you can't see a pathway forward, it leads to a lot of things like depression and just hopelessness. So whatever that means, whatever that takes to help people not talk about gay people or LGBT people as the other, but start talking about the real lives that they have and the real future that our youth have, if that's how they identify. How you do that, you'll figure that out.
That's good. Before I came out as a member of the church, I had 1,032 friends. After I came out, I had 32. So, and honestly, what I'm saying with this is, we don't know how to connect with people as members of the church in general. I think we have a really hard time with actually connecting with people. And that's because we're afraid of being vulnerable. We're afraid of opening up. I'm not talking about LGBT people, I'm talking about everybody. That's a human condition. People are afraid of being vulnerable and opening up because they're afraid of rejection. And I think at church, if we could open up or use priesthood, Relief Society, Sunday school, whatever, as a place to actually talk about issues, talk about problems people are having, get to know people, we might actually reach a point where we become like Christ, because we'll understand others.
This next question, I'll just specifically read what it says. My daughter just came out this week. I am trying to love and support her. My wife is not here with me. She is having a very difficult time accepting our daughter. How can I help her come to accept and love our daughter as she is?
Talk. Talk. And actually when I say talk, just ask an honest question and listen. And don't prescribe what you think is the answer.
Yes.
Just listen and listen and listen. As I have discussed my issues with priesthood leaders and some others, a tendency is to prescribe the gospel, is to prescribe what we think is the answer. That is not effective. We need to simply ask questions, learn, listen, and be humbled by the fact that we realize we don't know this whole issue. If, a child comes up to you and says, I think I'm gay, it's like there is a whole iceberg underneath the water that needs to be dealt with. When I say dealt with, I mean talked about. They really just talk with them and listen. Talk and listen.
I think understanding too, and I'm getting this because of my ex-wife, understanding too that your wife is probably scared to death of losing what she perceives to be an eternal family. And in doing that, there's a lot of fear. And I think letting her express that fear and helping your daughter also understand that her mother needs to express that fear as much as your daughter needs to express herself is really important. Humans are humans, and she needs to have those same emotions the way your daughter needs to have her same emotions, with the understanding that they're going to come together to still love each other because of the family no matter what.
I think, well, particularly in my case, and I'm probably so in gay, lesbian, bi, the spouse, the father, the mother thinks they've got another individual there, and all of a sudden, and like in my case, I said, well, it's still me. Oh no. It's not you anymore. It just is. But what happened, what I've been told over and over, and I finally realized too, I'm comfortable with myself. And as a young person coming out, of course, is still working on establishing where they are with their gender and their sexuality. And all. You're struggling with so many things in that time in their life. And older, well, you've got to figure it out, you know what they are. But to the spouse, to the father, the mother, I really believe, from what I've experienced here for the last 2 years, that you're a whole nother person now. You're not what we knew. But that's because they're not comfortable with us. And as you said, listen without judging. Trying to come up with a fix. Well, maybe if you did this, maybe, and you've all heard it, read more scriptures, pray more, go to church more, do this, and this will all go away. That doesn't work. How many of us out here have tried that? Yeah. It's well-intentioned, but it doesn't work. So they, the parents, They're dealing with who they are. And the sooner we accept that, their life will be a lot easier and our lives will be a lot easier.
I'm just reminded of so many other parents who I've met the first week that they found out that their child was gay. And you're at the beginning of a journey. The only thing I would add to the wonderful advice you've been given is to connect with other people who understand that journey as well. There's a lot of them here in the room. There's a lot of them on the phone. They've gone through every experience that you're feeling right now. I know my mom, I wish she would have taken up that opportunity because I know she felt so many feelings. She felt failure as a mom. I thought I raised you right. All those things are very valid feelings that I know she had to work through, and unfortunately she had to work through it alone. I would encourage any parents in that situation, you don't have to work through that alone. There's so many resources, so many people who speak the same language as you and that are going through the same thing. You are at the beginning of a journey, so take a deep breath and just embrace it. But embrace it with other people who can understand you and help you along your way.
One little piece. As I was talking about listening, I wanted to add there's a very important concept called validation, and that is, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's just, don't try to compare their experience to anyone else's, or they will not be convinced that you understand their situation. If you compare a gay person to a single woman in the church, I'm sorry, they are not going to trust you with further discussions. And there's relating, oh well, the polygamous way back when had the same policy as now the November 5th policy from 2015. So therefore, it should be easy for gays to deal with it. It's not like that. It is a different situation. Please trust us when we say it's a different situation, and trust your child, and just don't try to relate it to somebody else's experience. Let them share just theirs. Thank you. After asking that question, there's actually multiple parents in the room who said, we're here. None of them are on the panel, but I just want you to know there's many parents here who have all walked different journeys and are here to support that path that you take with your child. I also just want to put a plug in for an amazing online resource that's called I'll Walk With You. It's a Facebook group for LDS parents who have LGBT kids. There's almost 1,000 parents in it. It's a worldwide group. It's very, very active, and parents are being added daily in the same position. And just look around. There's a lot of people here who are in that same path. We're actually out of time. We've filled in a lot of the questions. Most of them I couldn't get to. But I want to thank our panel again. If we can give them a round of applause. One person say, if you know one LGBT person, you know one LGBT person. And I think what we've heard today is just, that is proof of that. Everyone's path and journey and experience is different, and that's our blessing to be able to get to know everyone and learn from them. With that, we will